Get a swig of tea. Sarit. Still putting a hoodie on. Ranchua, hajimasu.
Hey.
Nare. Taiso, hajimasu.
No.
Cool. Okay, Iris, warm-up exercise. First 10.
Just one exercise?
A warm-up exercise. Pick one.
Squats.
Squats. Blimey. What a way to start. And count in whatever language you want.
Ich. Ni. San.
Kiyono, hajimasu.
No.
Kaisoku, churangamai kamaite. Okay, a little bit more warm-up. So this is all about warm-up rather than technique. We are going 10 Kentucky, 10 Miyuchi, actually 20 each, to the count from ich, ni, san, shi, go, rook, sich, hudge, kyu, ju. Ich, ni, san, shi, go, rook, sich, hudge, kyu, ju. My first sensei said that I seem to do these, I was a white belt, like I was doing the can-can. So not out here. It's not your problem, I just thought I'd overshare. From Migi, Ken Kara, Michi, Ich, Ni, San, Shi, Go, Rook, Sich, Hudge, Kyu, Ju. Ich, Ni, San, Shi, Go, Rook, Sich, Hudge, Kyu, Ju. Hirasagari to Hadari, Jurangamai, Maite. The attack Jochu. You want, if you've got the space, if you can do my Shidori, Jochu. Okay? So, here's a count. Ich, ni, san, shi, go, rook.
Sorry, I'll be right back.
Fish, hudge, cute, ju. Arasagari to Miggy. Chujigamai, Kamate. Let's see if we can do it from here. So, my Shidori, Jochu. The technique obviously is from Shudan. Ich, ni, san, shi, go, rook, sich, hudge, ju. Very strange going from defensive to offensive. Although offensive is like this Americanized word, so I don't know if I want to use it. Shinkokyu. No, back to warm up. Yoko, Migi, Yoko, Masuga, Mike, Maite. So one thing I was finding really hard yesterday is coming back into Yoko, Masuga, Mike. Is it front or back, Ophelia?
Front.
Front? Right, from. So from who, you've seen this before, right, Iris? You know what we're talking about?
No.
No, okay. So your fists, you're doing a very good impression of knowing. I mean, very impressed. That's how you should live through life. Pretend you know, ask questions. Your fists are like that, sideways. So this one's on top, this one's underneath. Ophelia would say that you are keeping a little puppy. We don't play with swords. Dan, not allowed. Don't play with swords. That's a whole different martial arts. So puppy, my puppy is green. It's here. Get saved. Or alcohol. That's the other option. It's my dojo. So those are the options. Right, from here we will do Gyakuzuki, Chudanzuki, and see if we can come back to stance each time. Do the count from me. Ich. Ni. San. Go. Araxagari to Migi. Yoku Muso Gamai. And again, Gyaku Zuki, Jun Jordan. Ich. Ni. This feels so much better this side.
No.
San. Shi. The reason it feels better is I'm cheating. Rather than doing a full Chidori-ash, Sensei Martin style, I'm doing a much more added Sensei style, which is I'm taking a big step back, turning my foot back, okay? It's a big step, yeah. And then releasing the punch, releasing the punch. Makes a huge difference to my form. Try both. I'll give you 5 more. Ich. Ni. San. Shi. Go. Okay, Twinkle Q. How's your puppy dog?
My Tigger, you mean?
You're a little Tigger? I mean, Dan is right. All of these Yoko Musoko Mais are from sword attacks, and you're keeping your sword in place. But if you guys go around with swords, I'll be really. So, go on to Kiris if we've got time.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll start with the one that isn't on the list. So the Luki, which is the core of all the techniques that we're going to. It's the basic form of what we're going to start variations of these afterwards. If you, sorry, Iris, if you remember Johaku Nuki, which is the grab to the bicep, and you come around and you push, you sort of punch the floor. The Sode Nuki, someone has, rather than grab, they maybe gone for your bicep. It's not been too much bicep or too much bicep to grab, and they're instead holding onto your sleeve.
It's your sibling wanting to take your jacket off you.
Exactly.
This is my hoodie. I want it.
You can't have it.
No.
No take backsies. So they're holding onto your sleeve, and what you're going to do is you're going to draw a really big circle. And you can make this smaller with your haku. When they're holding onto your sleeve, my form, or I always think to do it really big. So if you start out from Gyaku Rangama, so your arms are way down. From here, I'm going to draw the biggest circle I possibly can with this hand. So I'm going to go all the way around, out to the side, step out to the side a little bit, and then come back in again. And then from here, once it's past my face, I can now bring it in close. And what this does is the wrist as the wrist stays here to come around, you're now wrapping around their wrist and then coming above it. And now just cutting down onto their hand, and their hand's just going to slip off your sleeve. So we'll just do a couple of those from Gyaku Rangamai. So you've got the opposite arm forward to your legs. Oh, I just missed. There you are. From ordinary Gedangamai and true Dangamai, you lower your fist, like Ichijigamai, but with your hand closed. But then flip your feet. So you've got the wrong foot forward. And from here, you're then gonna, so I was doing it from this side, you're gonna get grabbed on your upper sleeve. You're gonna draw a really big circle all the way around, and then put it in. And you know when when footballers score a goal and they're like, yes! Or the golfers do this. I was on a FaceTime watching my nephew
score goals in the garden earlier, and that he did that every single time he hit a goal, which is every 30 seconds, every like 10 seconds.
Okay, so that's what we're doing. We'll do a couple to the count from Gyaku Garangamai. 1 2 3 4 to the other side. Opposite arm forward. 5 Look. 6 8 Okay. Good. Iris, that's really good. It's probably your first time doing this technique, I suspect. Maybe you've done it before. But it's really, really good. Dan, a pointer that a thing I would keep in mind, a thing that I try to keep in mind when we're doing this, especially single form, when you're doing this, their wrist has to turn over. So keep in mind what you are doing to turn their wrist, especially when you're coming up in front of you. So quite often just a big movement will do, but often when we learn these, we start with really big movements, then we try refining them. So how can you guarantee that their wrist is going to turn over, and is this big movement, can you make this smaller and still get the same effect? Thing to keep in mind as we're doing all of these.
And what stance is this from? Because I feel that Kinteki is quite exposed while you're turning around.
Gyaku Rangamai. You're so far away.
No, as in the Tai or Hiraki?
Tai, probably.
Yeah, it's tight because I'm attacking your back sleeve.
Yeah.
Is there a possibility that they could Kinteki get you?
Yes.
That's always a possibility, but they have.
I mean, that's like a mandatory possibility.
That's why you're stepping to the side always.
Okay.
You're always coming off the line with these.
Okay.
Also, I think why your form is a lot bigger than my form is for the same reason, because you're learning it from people who have the Kinteki attack. But also, I think you need to go lower. Is that right? Has she frozen?
Are you talking to me or are you talking to...
I'm talking to you.
Oh.
Sensei.
Yeah, my form generally is a bit lower than yours.
Mm.
And a bit wider. That's already thick. Moving on, so what we were just doing, Daniela, since you missed out, we were just doing a release from a sleeve grab, which is the same as when you release out of, I don't know if you remember the bicep grab. So it's a similar thing. From here, you're just going to get grabbed. You're going to draw a really big circle. And then I scored a goal. Is what we call it. I scored a goal, Gamai. From that, we're now going to stop. So what this does is it releases them. So they end up letting go of your sleeve. We are not going to let them let go of your sleeve. And there are 3 different versions of this. We're going to start with Sode Dori, which is you're going to try and curl their arm onto themselves. So what they're going to look like from the sides, they're going to start looking a bit like this. And so as they grab your sleeve, you're coming out to the side. You've started the circle that we were drawing, but when you start angling your circle up, you take this other free hand and you clasp it on top of their hand. So you think of sandwiching it between, you're creating a sandwich of your bicep, their hand, your hand, and then your other arm is what's going to come in a second. So from here, you're going to keep drawing up. You're now going to hook this on top. And rather than come over like we were just doing around the side, you're going to go into them forwards. Exactly. And what this does, it curls their arm, it's really uncomfortable, and they're going to drop to the floor. Probably they're just going to sort of drop down on one knee as if they were proposing to you. It's a great way to force someone to propose to you. I don't know if that's ever something that anyone's ever planning on doing, but that's the thought that just crossed my mind. So we'll try that a couple of times. We'll try that 5 times on each side. Yes?
And then don't overturn as you come over. So your ideal form. So this is one of those techniques that I learned once and have felt perfected ever since. So if you're here and you'll come back, this shoulder is coming into the center line, your center line. Okay? And therefore you want to be quite stable, not overbalanced in the front. Sorry, Ophelia.
No, you're right, definitely. So from Gaku Gedangamai, each, getting grabbed, coming over, clamping on, looking this, and then rolling off. Okay? Knee. San. Shi. All right, ferry to the other side. Cool. Look. Sheets. Was that a reflection to our technique or your technique?
I'll ask you in a minute.
Look. Sheets. Touch. Yes. This is mainly a comment for Dan. So this arm has to, because you have to curl that arm, the hand has to be horizontal when you're doing this. What I tend to look for, what I tend to look at, and what I find this technique doesn't work if I don't do this, is this technique doesn't work if I bring my arm in too close, if I bring my elbow in too close to my body. So everything else has to be close, but I actually find my elbow has to kind of point out, because this puts the arm at the correct angle.
That actually really helps.
And I think, Dan, because you've done it so much, you get used to pulling it in, so you've started pulling it in a bit like this. So I try and keep it upright. Then in Irish, I think because you were just copying me, you were already doing it.
I don't know.
I don't know if you noticed, but you were both doing it already. You were already holding your arm out. Because you're mainly because I think you're copying from the image. So Dan, keep that in mind, that you have to keep this wrist upright. And that's going to help you, that's going to lessen the need to overextend as well, and to bend forwards.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll do 4 more. You get 2 on each side. Make them good. From Hidari, Gyaku, Gedangamai. Each. Knee. Swapping sides. Stand. Shi. Yes. Good. Now the next technique on our list, I'm going to give it slower than I was. Oh, we're doing really slowly, sorry. The next one is you're now, remember when I was saying you're curling over them? This time you are going to turn around out. And what this does is rather than folding them in on themselves, you're actually twisting that hand this way. So we're now working on a different angle.
Just, sorry, I just have a question before we move on. So once you have them like that, what's the point? Like then.
So that is the pin and take down in one. So the only, pretty much it's very painful. So they won't want to stand up from there
If I,
even when they fall down.
because you end up here, sort of that way on the ground in Kempo.
So from there, if you want to put it on more, if you want to show that you have them in position, you'll just lean in a bit, and they're going to tap from there. So they're going to be down here tapping on the floor.
Okay.
And then all you do is just hit them and let go.
Cool. Okay.
This is to take down and pin in one thing.
Gotcha.
So now, from here, rather than curling forward, you're actually going to turn out, open up outwards. And now you should have them in the same shape that we did for yesterday, Iris. So this kind of S shape is what we're trying to get. And from there, just you're clasping your arm down. This is a bit harder to do without a partner, because now you need to see how they're reacting. So we'll just do this a couple of times. They'll grab you, you'll come around, and as you can see, as I'm doing this, Kavita's wrist is going to turn. So Kavita's wrist is now upside down, and her thumb is pointing downwards. And you clasp your hand on the same way we did with the last technique. And from here, all you really should need to do is squeeze and maybe lean in a little bit, and it should be very painful.
And then we'll go down.
So all I want you to think about is drawing the circle. This time, rather than staying at a right angle, you're going to turn sideways, so you're along them. And then bring your elbow down a bit. Think of leaning into them, wherever you're imagining they are. We'll do 5 on each side. Each. Knee. And cheek. Core. Good, swapping sides. Thoraxillary. Look. Cheeks. Hut. Good. Good. Yes. Good. Sorry, I ran way over there. That took a lot longer than I thought.
Okay, let's just talk about stance a little bit. So, Sensei Ophelia's Gyaku Chudangabai is closed fist, and you're offering, right? So you're offering. So you start from stance, and what you do is you take that back shoulder and you offer it like so. You say, tap me here. Sensei Alids, which is what Dan has been doing, it's an open form, but you need to think about what this hand is doing, right? The reason it comes in is Sensei Sean, who was my sensei for a long time, would be like, you know what, I don't want you attacking me. So it was much more upright and much more in front. It's like, I don't want you attacking me, you don't want this arm, you should go away. So that's much more active, okay? If you're being much more submissive, then you want to be behind your head somewhere over here and really offering this and saying, attack me, because I'm going to take you down. And you need to channel that when you're in your stance. Don't have it so it's sort of, I'm kind of here, I'm kind of here. You know, the tension shouldn't be in this arm, it should as much be in this protective arm. Just so you know, my preference, I think this looks much better. I find like I'm fighting, take my arm, is much nicer, but I'm okay with an open hand as well. Clearly my sensei is.
I was taught from the way I was taught it was, for Gyaku Iranga, my one hand should be open, but that either is okay.
Yep.
Ordinary Girangamayu type of.
Yeah, I just don't think there is a consensus on all of this. So, but
You're right.
Alid is really clear. So I'd say Alid is really clear. It's a backhand. I just want to be more active.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Suki.
Yesterday we talked about living half for yourself and half for others. We talked about the extremities of that and how it can be, and we all do this. In fact, we talked about it, Daniela, I think a week ago, about that concept and how yesterday we talked about the extremities of that as well as what's in the middle, about going back and forth, maybe like scales or like a sliding process. The next topic, which I'd completely, and we have done it before, but I'd completely forgotten that it's got this fun name. On the list that Sensei Ophelia and I produce, it's called Live in Harmony with Others. So if I just said, live in harmony with others, Dan's nodding his head. I did not remember what that related to, so I'm going to ask you guys. Did anyone else remember, other than Dan? Don't look it up. Stop cheating. You cheat every single time and pretend you know all the things.
Yeah, to get the right answers then.
He does. That confuses me. Because I think actually the misinterpretation is as much important as the actual interpretation, right? Because that's how, just coming off stream, sometimes it's that, you know, Ophelia and I discuss this all the time, and much more in lockdown now than before. Our heritage of Kempo has come that way, from the same source, but this way in just 1 or 2 generations, and suddenly our forms are completely different, right? Because it's adjusting for us. And it's the same with this philosophy. Anyway, anyone remember what the answer was? Live in harmony for others. If I may give you the bigger...
Is the answer in Japanese, or is the answer the definition?
Yeah, give me what you've got.
So, living in harmony with others is Jitakyoraku?
Very good.
Yeah, one of the ones behind him.
Do you know both of them? Do you know both phrases?
Yeah, Jiko Kakuritsu.
And?
Jitakyoraku.
Cool. Okay, yes. So the actual phrase, I actually screwed up, and when I took it and notated it, it should be establish yourself, live in harmony with others, right? So there's 2 parts to it. Jiko Kakuritsu is the establish yourself. Dan, take us through that. What does that mean?
There are multiple streams of Kempo. We had the talk about Goho and Juho from Sensei Rob just before this. But it's developing yourself in all facets of your existence so that you can be a productive and helpful member of society. So not just building strength and building skill, but also gaining mental clarity, having a framework of ethics so that you can deal with situations by yourself and not have to rely on others, or not always use others' dictations to guide what you need to do.
Yeah. And Ophelia, do you want to correct you?
Yeah, so they're connected. I think it's the first. So, I think. So, Jiko Kakuritsu is the establishment of who you want, of what kind of person you want to be, whereas Jitakyoraku, I find, is how to functioning in a society is often how I think about it, and how to be training to become someone who, again, this connects to a lot of other parts of philosophy, but how I think the joint term for these two Japanese terms is Kempo is an art that develops individuals, and we're trying to create people who are morally just, which is, I guess, the first aspect, and the second is people who function with others and who can communicate and who can cooperate and work together in order to reach whatever goals it is they want, whether it's creating a new martial arts club, creating a better world, or just getting a bunch of people to a seminar, or organising a quiz, organising a party.
Iris, do you have any thoughts on that? It's obviously the scroll at Imperial. Don't know if you knew that.
Sorry, what's with Imperial?
I think it's Jita Kyoraku is the scroll, and is what's written on the scroll at Imperial every time you have trained in real life.
Mm.
Daniela, any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds pretty straightforward, because you would think that if you establish yourself and you kind of better yourself, that you would be more useful, I guess, to society. And I think that concept runs through a lot of different practices where, like, mindfulness is a big part. So even like yoga, for example, it's a big part of that, at least what I do. But I think it's easier said than done sometimes, because it's, as humans as well, one thing that I find is I often compare myself to others, and I think that's something that we generally just do. So it's really easy to say, like, be your most authentic self, and then you'll just automatically, it'll just flow through. But it's not always that easy, because, you know, the way that I practice Kempo, for example, is very different from the way that each of you practice. And what it means to me, and how it establishes, like, how I establish myself with Kempo and all the other bits of myself, is very different than everybody else. So, you know, I find personally, like, I get a lot from the practice, but I also, it's not the biggest part of myself. So establishing myself, I think, through Kempo means something very different, or it means something different for each of us. So I think that bit's kind of tricky sometimes, because there's no real way to measure it. So it's not like, okay, well, once you reach this point, therefore you'll be established and you'll be helpful, you know, you'll be able to better society. That's not really how it works. So it's hard sometimes to, you know, I feel like we're always striving to reach that, which is good, except I think sometimes you have to realize there's not really an end to that, and there's not really like a ceiling either. Like, everybody's different.
So as you were talking, I was thinking about, when we started talking about this, I was thinking about how I would relate it back to work and life. But just to riff off what you were saying, you know, I think if you met me in a Kempo context, which sometimes you do, I think in the last few months I have been completely obsessed with it, and there's an identity that's completely wrapped up with this club and being part of it, and establishing it as an entity in its own right, which is separate to me. Very important to me that identity of the club is like SOAS, it's said, or Imperial, has longevity beyond my drive and passion for it. So that's one thing I've been thinking about. But actually, that isn't actually what I'm most obsessed with in life. Right? Kempo is not. Kempo, it does not. I have a hierarchy. I've established a hierarchy about after a few years of training, and the hierarchy often is interchangeable between an important work project, because you have to sustain yourself, you have to establish yourself, but family and friends, and that tends to outrank anything. So I will definitely ditch Kempo for a social event that I think is important to that person, if I can't move it, right? So it's their birthday, or they need counselling or something, you know, support, and I will ditch Kempo for that. And it's definitely a hierarchy of needs. It's definitely Maslow's hierarchy, like, coming through. If you've not seen that, definitely check it out. But actually what I wanted to finish on was this idea of UK society, because obviously we're in the midst of talking about what, in fact, I was on a call last night with the Bristol dojo, and they all turned up and they started talking, as you would expect, of what they should do with a statue that has, you know, with the Colson statue that's just taken down. But one thing that I've thought a lot about is how within UK society, the people that I totally respect are establishment. They are people who reach establishment, right? Whether they be MPs or charity leaders or corporate leaders. But what I like is that they get recognised within our very insular structure that we have, whether they get knighted or they get put into the House of Lords or whatever. You know, there is this, there is a mechanism within UK society to hold up great people, and what happens is that terrible people get held up in that structure as well, right? And our job, I think, is to really pick a role models. So to riff off what Danielle is saying, you're right, it never stops, because if you basically die in the House of Lords, you could basically, you could, you know, what Sensei Misno says is, if you get knifed down, you're definitely about to die. So there's definitely this trajectory of, like, you know, at third Dan, that you could be heading to. There's a hell of a lot of scope between now at third Dan and ninth Dan, and it's for me picking those people who are living this and seeing what else I take from that. Does that make sense? Cool. Now I can say Renchu Awarimas.
Okay.